Welcome to the Agile Austin Coaching Meetup. It is the first Monday of each month. Our mission at Agile Austin is to connect people and foster professional growth through collaborative events that educate our community on uncovering better ways to deliver value through Agile values, principles, and practices. So if you would like to be involved with Agile Austin, and we really hope you would, there are two methods to do so. Number one is sponsorship, and the second is membership. And we cannot say enough good things about Agile Austin membership. It is a very low, very reasonable rate of $35 a year, and you get access to the Slack and member portals. You can vote and even sit on the board, and those dates are coming soon. There are special events and discount training. If you're interested, please go to agileaustin.org. And these are 2021-2022 board members. You will see Max Akezi holding down that upper left-hand corner. And Red, if you would care to imitate Max's voice once again, we'll hold for you. Looks like Red's going to pass on that. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the people that you see here. So these are our current sponsors. Big thanks to Retrospectives, who is our platinum sponsor and holding that down. And we also have two silver sponsors, Ad Meliora Coaching and WellSky. So thank you to all of them. These are the different Agile Austin meetups. We have everything from the coaching meetup that you're at now, Agile at Scale, Book Club, Leaders, a Lean Kanban SIG, as well as Scrum Master. And this is in addition to the big monthly speaker series. That big monthly meeting for Agile Austin is the second Tuesday of each month. For now, it is still virtual, but they might actually bring that back in person, I'm thinking sometime soon. And if you are interested in volunteering at Agile Austin, social media support, you might see a different need for a meetup or a SIG or whatever other ideas you have, please reach out to Agile Austin through that contact@agileaustin.org email, and someone will get back to you. But Sid, I think that means that you're up right now on these slides. It's your turn.
So, I hit the mute button too many times. I'm Sid Markle, and as you all have heard, Erin, we co-partner on the hosting of this coaching SIG. I do want to share that this is going to be Erin's last co-chair for the coaching SIG, and she's going, but she'll still be around. We'll still see her. She's still going to attend. However, there is a spot open if there's somebody who's interested in pairing with me to co-lead this SIG. I'm looking for extra hands. So if anybody's interested, I wanted to throw that out there and looking for the right fit.
Partner in crime.
Partner in crime. All right. So do we want to go, is it introduction time or? Next.
Almost.
Yeah. So in the next couple of months, we've got Jessica Barr coming next in June, which is going to be talking about hitting the coaching easy button, which should be a great discussion. So please come. In July, we have Bob Galen coming along, and he is going to be talking about a book that he just published called something like
It's Extraordinarily Badass Agile Coaching.
Yeah, which sounds awesome. I can't wait to find out what that's about. And I think Erin even has a book to give away to a winner.
We have two. Yes. I bought 2 copies of Bob's book, and those 2 copies will be given to 2 lucky attendees on that night in July. Please note, everyone, we will be meeting July 11th that month, not July 4th, because everyone will likely still be too happy seeing fireworks.
That's right. That's right. And then in August, we have Nadia, who's going to come talk about servant leadership, her servant leadership journey. Excited about that. And then we also have a couple of guests coming up in September and October, but we'll tell you about those later.
Yeah.
Now I want to introduce you to Michael Ackerbauer, who's going to be our speaker tonight. So I had the pleasure of meeting Michael during an IC Agile training, I believe, a few years ago. maybe 2019, 2018. I can't remember the year. But during that session, we had a chance to talk, and he shared with me some of the work he's been doing around, I think maybe a thesis that you were working on around social styles and team dynamics.
Mhm.
And it was so insightful and exciting. And I couldn't wait to speak to Macker again. I remember feeling that way. And I think that you're all going to feel that way after he presents too. So Michael is a whole team intrapreneur and a cognitive Sherpa. And as a seasoned innovator, innovation coach, and transformational leader, Macker makes complex concepts easy to understand and simple to apply. He holds a master's degree in applied imagination and a doctorate in creative leadership for social innovation. And he is also a certified rock balancer, which I'd love to learn more about later at some time. Welcome, Michael, and thank you for joining us tonight to talk about mindful agility.
Well, sitting there, and thanks so much for having me. It's a thrill to be here. I'm really glad to be part of this. And Aaron, I'm glad I got in while you were still here. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen. If you have experience with Mural or you want to try it, anybody feeling brave, I'm going to invite you to join me in the Mural. And I'm going to post it in chat unless somebody beats me to it. Yeah. Oh, I can do it up here, can I? Link, copy link. There, I lost there we go. Okay, so you're welcome to join me. That'll make it more fun. It'll make it more engaging. And I'll share my screen. Two, just the right one. Can you see me again?
Yep.
Yes, that's great.
Okay, great. Okay, so you're welcome to join me. It'll make it more interesting if you do. Thanks, Sid, for the intro. Yeah, it is true. I'm a certified rock balancer. It does actually have relevance to agility. And I'll actually illustrate it in a minute. But my other two titles, I call myself a whole team intrapreneur because we care as Agilists about the whole team, or as a character in a novel, the Bosch series. If you've seen the Amazon show, Amazon Prime Bosch, he's famous for saying everyone counts or nobody counts, or everyone matters, nobody matters. So the whole team, every voice matters in being impactful and how we do what we do. And my second favorite title is rock balancer, certified rock balancer. But of course, you know, with a 2-year-old granddaughter, Pop wins the day as far as titles go. Where in the world are you? I'd love to just get a sense of, I know this is Agile Austin, but I'm in New York and Lamani is on the West Coast. So I'm just curious, where are you hailing from, dialing in from tonight? Okay, looking like North America. All right, great. Oh, I'm seeing a pattern forming up around Texas, looks like. Good, it's good to know.
You have someone from Santiago, though.
Oh, look at that. Fantastic. That's right. Javier.
Yeah.
Yay, terrific. So I do a lot of mural facilitations. By day, I am for the past 2 or 3 years, I've been a Scrum trainer. So I'm always interested in just, if nobody wants to talk, you know, at least people will put stuff up on a mural if they join. So I'm going to do this talk a little bit differently. I'm assuming all of you have a decent amount of Agile experience and probably a number of coaches here. You're welcome to share with me some of that if you like in chat. It's not a prerequisite for this conversation, but I want to do this as a little bit of a meta talk. So I'm going to share this thought process with you that I do with a lot of teams inside and outside of IBM, but also I want to share it with you from a coaching perspective. Some of how I approach the conversation itself and how what I'm trying to get out of some of the points that I make. Some of them, I say that to say, maybe obvious more than others. For instance, when I have this talk, generally, it's people who don't know a lot about Agile or formal Agile constructs, the mindset, the principles, the practices. So I'd still be curious how you define agility. And I ask the question because I don't use the word Agile very much anymore inside IBM or when I train. I use the term agility because in companies as large as mine, and Sid's and Mike's, it has multiple definitions. It has multiple meanings. It carries a lot of baggage. It's hard to unpack. People seize on what their constructive agile is, and that doesn't always make for good conversations. It's not always constructive. So you're welcome to share with me in the mural, if you're there, in number 3 in the outline, what's your definition of agility? Or when you hear the word agility, and for that matter, when you hear the word mindfulness, what do they mean to you? Well, some of you are doing that. Thank you. What I do with these kind of murals, I like to get a little, who are you? Can I get to know you? Not so much. We use an icebreaker warm up exercise with virtual classes called the I am board. And so you're at liberty to share anything you want with us about yourself, except your title, except your job description, except, the company you're part of. Just to get to know each other as human beings, being present, being engaged and present, mindful, intentional, aware, agility, adaptability, and responsiveness. Good. Fail fast and learn fast. That's good. Mindfulness, being present and aware. The ability to respond quickly and meaningfully to customer needs and wants. Great. These are terrific. Practices to complete the work valuable to users, flexible and responsive, definitions, quick experimentation. Terrific. Thank you. Okay, you're welcome to keep going. I'm going to tell you that I look at balance like this. Funny that you should mention balance, mindfulness. I think about mindfulness and agility as finding the right balance on a team. But when I'm going to zoom in for those watching the recording or not in mural, these are some of my artistic endeavors on the coast of northern Massachusetts. There's a place about an hour north of Gloucester called Newburyport, and on the coast of Newburyport is Plum Island. And on the southernmost tip of this about 3-mile long island is this wildlife preserve or refuge. It's a great town. And this place we went one year just because some friends of ours knew about it. And we took the kids, and it was low tide, so the kids are all about finding creatures. And I had just gone to, around the time, several years into our almost annual trip, I had learned about rock balancing at a creativity conference in Toronto. And so I would go anywhere I'd find rocks, anywhere around me after I learned how to balance them, I would just do it. But now I come into this, you can see on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, there's rocks as far as you can see when the tide goes out. It is a target-rich environment for balancing rocks. And here's the thing about it that matters. Any 2 rocks will balance over time, provided the rocks speak to you. Profound, isn't it? Zen-like, isn't it? But it's true. And I found that out as I was taking one rock and standing it on another and figuring out where their centers of gravity were or were not. And the heavier the rock, by the way, the easier you find it, because the weight is very obvious where it will or will not go. And then when it happens that they find that, and you can feel them negotiating, and you have feedback as you're doing this. You're getting these feedback loops open and closing all the time. And then it just clicks and you step back and you go, look what I did. And it's magical every single time I do it. But to me, to be an agile coach is, and when we learned the IC Agile framework for coaching, we learned 9 stances. Those stances are a form of balance to me. What's the right stance to be in right now? And it changes with every conversation. And shared understanding on teams is a moving target. So you're always trying to find that right balance of what are we trying to accomplish and how are we going to accomplish it? So when I think of agility, I think of being responsive to change. And the rocks are very good about telling you when they're not, when the change is something they don't like. So there you go, Sid. We talked about it, but it also is the core theme here. You won't see it, but I'll call it out for the rest of the time we're together. Here's some other ways I look at agility. This is from March of 2020, that decade of COVID lockdown, when 1-800-Flowers, a company in the United States who sells flowers through online, they were seeing that they needed to take care of their people, the company, the employees, in a very unique, special, proactive, intentional way. And so they provided them wellness and mindfulness services. And then they said, well, why don't we do this for our customers also? So they sent the letter that you see on the left-hand side. This is, how are you doing? And I thought, number one, it was great to know that corporations, even though they're capitalists, they have a soul, because they weren't looking to make a sale. They were looking to make a connection with their clients, with their customers. It was a relational thing. And I know this because I discovered this story from the CEO of 1-800-Flowers. He was teaching at the school where I am an adjunct online, and he gave a talk. And I thought, wow, this is just really brilliant that they did this. And then you see over here some not entirely safe for work feedback that they received on Twitter, on social media, about what they did and what a delightful outcome it was for them to receive it, which is how we frame design thinking at IBM. Is the end goal should be a delightful outcome. I didn't see that coming, or it has much more meaning and value than I thought it would, more impact. For me, this was a form of agility that we don't see often in companies or corporations, that they responded to a serious crisis, a serious pandemic, and they really did it with humanity. And if you're in the mural, over on the right-hand side are all the links to all of that as it happened in Twitter. And if you hover over those links, there's a little button that says open, and it'll pop up another tab for you. But when I talk to teams that don't understand Agile or agility, or they're still kind of new to it, learning about it, I talk about Agile in the context of Vuca. Do I need to define Vuca? Anybody want to tell me what Vuca is? Do you get this quiz every single month?
Every month. I quizzed them last month on the same acronym.
Okay.
So somebody who was here last month might remember.
Yeah, who is paying attention to Sid and can remind us what Vuca is?
I gave you the first one. I spotted your
Volatility.
volatility.
Yeah.
Second one begins with a U, so it's something.
Uncertainty.
Thank you. Yes. C for
Complex.
complexity, and A for
An A.
ambiguity. Thank you. Now, I contend that during the decade of 2020, ambiguity gave way to anxiety. So there's where the mindfulness comes in, is, oh my goodness, we don't know what we don't know. The world is going mad. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. Movie quote? I'm a movie quote guy. Anybody? It's from a certain era. I am of a certain age.
From the 90s, isn't it? I can hear Jim Carrey saying it.
It's even older than that. I'll give you a hint. The second sequel, or the third of the movies, came out last summer sometime, or in the last 2 years.
I need a better.
Ghostbusters. Thank you.
Ghostbusters.
Oh, that's right. Bill Murray.
Yeah. So I say Vuca, you think Bill Murray. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. It was crazy time, but so much so that it wasn't even just ambiguous. There was an anxiousness to everything. So we deal with this all day when we deal with knowledge work in particular, but when we deal in agile ways of working, when we deal with the kinds of dynamics that we find ourselves in the 21st century, it's not manufacturing. And there's nothing wrong with manufacturing. It's to say that we most of the people that do agile ways of working do not work in the manufacturing mindset, or they do lean and Six Sigma and quality control. But I'm talking about the whole totality of what does agility look like in business today. These are the things we're dealing with all the time. And so what that means is, and let's break it down one level. What it means is, when we're dealing with, say, complexity, we're talking about a space in which we don't really know the full scope of what we're trying to accomplish, like we might have in the past. That is to say, over here in the bottom left, where there are simple problems, there is a clear scope. There is a binary of a sort type of solution. The tire went flat. What do? I put air in it. I replace it. The light bulb went out. I replace it. But when I get further away from agreement on what we're trying to, what's going on around us and what we're trying to accomplish, and further away from certainty of how we will solve that challenge, it becomes complicated than complex. And complicated is when we have some algorithms, we have some heuristics that work, that a degree of change will make this better or worse. We can dial something in and refine it, or algorithmically we can tune or fine tune the formula. I'm sorry, I'm at number 8 in case you're in Slack, don't know where we are. But once we get into a complex space, We're talking about a space that, sorry, complicated is where it's optimal. We can get the most, we can get it really close. We can dial it into, 97%. All of our mainframes are 99.99, I think 5 or 7 nines now, uptime assured. I mean, that's really refined, but that took a lot of time. When we get into complexity, we're talking about places that we just don't have a heuristic to define what's happening or craft a solution to it. There's just not enough tangibility to figure out what we're dealing with. So what we do in complexity is we look for what's good enough right now. What can we bring into a tangible space that is complicated, or what can we reduce from the complexity, some of the piece parts that are complicated that we can apply our normal ways of working or normal problem solving heuristics and get some answers. But in complexity, we don't fully know what's the end game and what's the right solution. So we work for just enough. We do it in an iterative way. And if we don't, we're into chaos and there's just no scope at all. So for those of you in the mural, could I ask you to take a black dot over here and drag it somewhere on this grid that represents where you spend, where your context right now, wherever it is that you are operating in agile ways or looking to, wherever you find yourself today in your agile specific context. What level of complicated, complex, or chaotic are you? Somebody in complicated, most of you in complex, one flirting with chaos. Yeah. And so here's the meta part of the talk for this section of the mural. I do this with organizations that may or may not know what Agile is, or may or may not know what to do about it, or may or may not care. And I ask them to identify where in complexity do they find themselves to know before, so I don't sell something, it sells itself, if you will, which is another movie quote, but I can't say the whole thing. That when people start to identify a couple of these steps, where are they? They start to find for themselves where there's opportunity to adopt a more agile mindset. But mostly what I want to get across here is that, yeah, everybody seems to be in this complex space where you need sensing and responding. You need analysis and probing. You need to ask open-ended, powerful questions, as we do as agile coaches. It's too unpredictable and too dynamic to actually say this is the problem or this is the solution. So we have to be very iterative, very intentional about what can we know now that we do not know. So what unknowns do we need to know? And then how do we define what to do with them? Questions or comments or thoughts so far? I see maybe there's some chat. No, good so far?
Sorry,
Okay.
Michael. I just wanted to add.
Yeah, please.
Time, or I will say the most of the time, is a matter of perception, right? Well, I work in a point of gravity between all kind of teams and projects, and sometimes they came with a total chaos course of stuff. But I will say, or other people say, and I've been there in chaos, and they just told me it's just A and B, and that's all. Thank you.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's subjective part of this.
Yeah. You can't be binary in a complex, ambiguous, volatile place, an uncertain place. You cannot be binary about it and be successful. Right? Unless you do a lot of yeses or a lot of nos until you go, wait a minute, that's not working. Let's try the opposite. And maybe, if you turn left 3 times, you actually end up turning right. So maybe you can get there, but it'll be a lot more painful, won't it? Take a lot more time. And how many people will be following you by then? So let's go another step. Let's go to number 10. The other one half of the complexity grid is uncertainty. And what uncertainty says is, anybody, again, movie quotes, Princess Bride fans, anybody? All right. Okay. Look at that. Yeah. You're familiar with the cliffs of insanity. The cone of uncertainty is related, right? It's just, and here's why. Because a lot of times we'll walk into an organization or walk into a challenge as a team or will be handed a fixed scope, fixed time project and told, tell us what you're going to do by when, or figure it out. But you walk in on this end, and let me use the laser pointer because I enjoy doing this a lot. You're walking in on this end of a challenge and you just don't know what you're dealing with yet. And somehow you're expected to make a commitment to what will happen over here by the end of the project. Another question. This is not on the speaker notes. How many of you ever engaged in a multi-month project where you knew it was lengthier than it probably should be, and you were committed to it, and so now you had to deliver, you had to press on, and it ended exactly the way it was said in the project plan was going to happen? Anybody? Because I want to know how you did it, because I want to be able to charge $50,000 myself for doing that gig. Nobody? Okay. Over here, what we're looking at really, and I got to move some stuff out of the way. When we're over on this left-hand side, what we're really dealing with is I would say this, we call this discovery, way over on the left-hand side. What's going on the left-hand side of this cone is what we need to understand better. And so when we walk into a space where we're told, figure it out, there's too many unknowns way out here. So what we have to do is pick something and say, let's try something, let's do something with it. Let's run let's make an educated guess, or let's do some sort of experiment, but let's understand what we're dealing with before we commit to something way down here. So I say discovery, meaning, why don't we spend some time, and I'm going to use arbitrary lines that represent some sort of iterative approach that says, let's figure out what we don't know, and let's see what things we can identify that we need to know. And then let's decide what we can do about it or with them when we do know them. Oh, that's an extra bonus. Okay. And eventually we get to a place where we say, well, maybe in this mushy middle here, somewhere in here we go, aha, I think we've stumbled onto something, or we've narrowed this cone down enough of all the alternatives of what we could do to one or two things we're going to do or going to focus in on. And let's see how we can get better at doing those things. And eventually you could say over on this end, and let's say we just do this in a time boxed or some kind of controlled format, so that over time we've got a decent metric of how do we progress. To the point that we get way down on this end, we're hoping to be at some form of delivery. So what tends to happen, I think, in organizations and teams, that leadership and the teams themselves doing the work either have the project thrust upon them, or they just don't really understand how you're going to address this, or they're dealing with complicated problems and don't realize they're in a complex space, is that we will assume that we can predict up here what we're going to accomplish down here. And so the idea over time is that how do we make sure that we're allowing for the clarification process to happen? What do we need to know that we don't know yet? Who do we need to talk to that we haven't heard from? Is the problem really our problem, or do we need to do some form of root cause analysis, 5 whys? Discovery to me is a form of understanding what the right problems are to solve. And just because we know what we think we want to accomplish we certainly don't know how to get there yet. So why do we commit to things on this end and put money down that we're going to get something done, knowing that there's all of this volatility that's going to go on here? I'm hoping this isn't just me that's experienced this with teams. And generally goes at a very high level, it goes something like this: well, we got to get it done, so just figure it out. Okay. Just don't put a gun to my head and tell me I have to know exactly what it's going to be way over here. Chances are very good I won't know. So this is so for those of you in the mural, same question for your context of where you are today in your Agile journey and Agile ways of working. You drag a blue dot somewhere in that cone where you would say you tend to spend most of your time, or perhaps where your projects tend to begin. I would say where you tend to spend most of your time. And if the cone speaks to you differently, feel free to put it somewhere and let me know what your rationale was, because I'd love to hear it. When you're doing that, let's see if this one has the little cone. It does, but I have to unlock it. Aha, okay. So while you're putting your stuff on the cone, I would submit to you that there's a little bit of this relationship going on here. The wide end of the cone is somewhere at the complexity to chaos border. And the more narrow the cone, the more you're down in the simple area. So if I can zoom out here. So everything on the discovery end here that everybody's putting seems to track pretty well with where you found yourself in complexity. And one or two people put it down in, oh yeah, that's probably complicated. So look, there's no easy answers for these steps here where you are here. There are some ways we can algorithmically build an optimal solution at this point, probably with some degree of certainty or confidence. Down here, it's just stupid simple. How do I reduce waste? How do I make it faster? How do I get even less resistance or friction or drag in the process? Down here, we're delivering something. That means all we're doing is working on how do I make that process of delivery faster? Up here, we're dealing with how do I make sure I'm working on the right thing? So that when I have it figured out, and now I feel pretty good about it, now I'm just doing refinement from that point forward. And this can change with different products, but at the beginning of any project, I submit to you that in the 21st century, you're always going to find yourself with a whole lot of uncertainty about what's the right solution here. The thing is about problem solving in general. We tend to do all this. We do all this. We illustrate all this in linear terms. What's the danger of talking about all of the ways we work and all the problems we try to solve in a linear manner, left to right? What's the drawback, would you suppose?
Reality is we tend to go back and forth as we learn things and go back and change and move a little forward a little bit more and then go back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a
Also, if things
go
get
ahead.
out of order, you get confused.
Yeah. Happened with IBM's design thinking model. It was a series of hexagons in linear format: understand, explore, prototype, evaluate. And over time, what the leaders in the design tower said was, we were hearing more and more as we were facilitating design sessions that people would, once they got to understand, explore, prototyping, and evaluating, they wouldn't go back for feedback from the customer or the client until they were ready to evaluate the prototype. And the logic was, linearly, the subconscious thing that melts into our heads is, yeah, I know what they wanted. I empathize with them at the beginning. So if I understand, explore, prototype, evaluate, I develop something, and then I take it to the client or the customer. I've waited this whole line of process. What kind of process have I just followed that Agile originally was conceived of to not do?
Waterfall.
Why? So, right. So this is a linear process, but even as I was, thank you, Mike, as I was illustrating this, you see that it gets more and more narrow, but you see, as I'm kind of illustrating how it might work, the process still looks like it's all over the place. I'm going linear in time, but nothing else. So really, one of our big issues, I think, with agility is realizing that problem solving is not linear except across time. And in my world, the definition of a team is a group of people who were put together to solve very specific kinds of problems for very specific constituencies, or to develop something better than what they have for the same people. You know what I mean? You're on a team that was conceived for a reason, for a very, very distinct purpose. And so over time, we're going to find this process messy. And it also means that we're going to potentially lose sight of what we're trying to accomplish. You know this model. Incremental certainty, Incremental certainty is, let's just give something to the client or the customer. And I would ask people that don't know this process well, I'd say, why is one better than the other? What ultimately are we dealing with here? What's the consistent common theme across every one of those iterations?
They can ride on it.
There's some form of transportation that does not require me to walk. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the value statement is, how do I get there faster than I can do it by myself? Yeah. Thank you. Right. So if we're producing something small and tangible along the way, which all of you know, but most of my audience doesn't, then the one thing we are doing across time is producing something we can measure, we can evaluate and measure. Who knows how we got here, because nobody gets to see how the sausage was made. But up here, we're still taking that whole time in the cone and hoping we get to number 4. And we just don't know. And by then, what we find out is maybe all they needed was a skateboard with handlebars. We don't know. So I propose to you that there's a better way of looking at complexity. Let me just check chat. Is somebody trying to talk to me? No. Any questions so far that Sid or Aaron you're getting? Aaron,
No,
you're on
we
mute.
just have, Sherry's just taken, she likes it. She
Yeah,
does
I like
Sherry
that.
note.
takes notes. Yeah.
It's fantastic. I'm loving it. I want to read it, Sherry, and say, wow, thank you. So I propose to you that there's a better way of viewing navigation of complexity and uncertainty. And yes, I did borrow this directly from the IBM School of Design. The enterprise design thinking model says it's an iterative process and it happens all the time. And while we would say understand, explore, prototype, evaluate is a re-entrant or an iterative process, and you can go back a step and check in, the linearity of it reinforces this subconscious model that no, I need to go left to right and follow it exactly that way. And so what's happening in the design model is that the left-hand side is about observing what's happening in the life of the customer, the client, the stakeholder who is receiving what I'm producing and doing something with it. So the left-hand side, what we're doing is some sort of research. Empathy mapping is one technique we use in design thinking a lot, but it could be any form of ethnographic research where I go and help me understand a day in the life of your circumstance. So I can see how you do what you do, and I can immerse myself in your world and feel your experience and your felt need alongside you. And then I can understand why there's a gap or where there's an issue, and then talk through it. Well, what is it we're feeling or seeing or thinking or doing that's a problem? If we map out your process, where are the pain points because they take too long, or there's gaps, or there's dependencies, or we do the pizza shop, and how long does it take? How long should it take to order a meal, or in this case, a pizza, and get it back? Well, how long does it really take? Okay, there's all your pain points. Now, what do we do about them? Within the observe process, we not only look to uncover those needs, we talk about big ideas of how to solve them or relieve those pain points. Then we come over here and we reflect and say, what have we discovered? What do we know now that we did not know before? Or what might we do about it? Oh, I know, we could go try this. Okay. Well, let's go over to the make side and take something intangible and make it concrete or tangible. Let's give it some sort of form and shape, like the skateboard model. This is this what you meant? Does this fix your problem? Oh, you can't walk. I have bad knees. So I like walking, but it's not as easy anymore. So what's a better way for me to walk if it's a long distance? I need a brace, or I need a car, or I need a cane, but what might it be? And well, we could come up with multiple things, but this is like on the left-hand side of the cone, we don't really know what the right answer is until we go play with it and bring something out and measure it. So at all times, then what we're doing is we're observing, we're reflecting, and again, we're circling back to, what do we think? Does this work? Is this what we were trying to accomplish? Is this the right problem space? Is this the right solution for the problem space? So it's this wonderful yin and yang rhythm and flow of what could be, what is, what are all the ways we could add value? What will we actually do? And then come back at all times and go, how are we doing? Are we tracking to what was needed? And are we doing it in a way that is efficient? Can we get better? Questions on the loop? Have you introduced the design loop before here, Liz?
No, I don't think so. I really like that, what you just said. I wrote that down. What could be, and then what is. That's Yeah.
Yeah, if Moscow fans, anybody, the evaluation prioritization tool,
Must
this is
do.
what are all the things we, well, it isn't even that, it's what are all the things we can do, but what will we do? Potential, reality, left-hand side potential, right-hand reality. What will we do is what's actually doable to bring in concrete form in a manner that's just incrementally enough. Great. Okay. This is where it gets interesting. I'm gonna throw this loop at you several different times now, but now I'm just going to tell you that this is how I view collaboration. This is how I view agile ways of working and iteration. Not so much the design thinking part of it, but that plays in here as well. When I think agility from a tools and techniques perspective, and practice perspective, which is the final loop image, it is design thinking practices and agility ways of working, plus some other stuff that we may or may not get to. So here's the mindset that I see behind the loop, and I'm still using the design thinking language, but I've abstracted it a little bit here. What's going on under the covers from a mindset perspective is when we're observing a client or a customer's lived experience, we're dealing with their felt need, we're doing some empathy mapping or value stream mapping. What we're trying to do is understand their context, what the landscape of their environment and their ways of working are. And as we're doing that, we want to find out where are those pain points. And then we talk through them. What does the pain point mean? And what could we do about it? So this becomes kind of it can be a very fluid conversation of what is the as is that's you're dealing with, but what is also the to be? Where are we now, but where would we like to be? And so when we uncover needs and listen for feedback, what we're doing is we're just looking at the gap between current reality and desired future state. And how might we bridge that gap? And that's where all the what might we do's come out of. And that's where hills come out in design terms. That's it's a big, hairy, audacious goal of about 90 days or more that says a who, a what, and a wow. And look, I must be explaining it well enough that you're ahead of me and you know where we're going. So thank you, Rudy. Keep going. If they disappear, let me know, because sometimes the murals, I lock them and then they're in the wrong layers. The who, what, and the wow. Who's our client? Who's our constituent? What is it they need? And what's the delightful aspect of what we're going to do for them that they didn't anticipate? That's what you come up with over here is the end stage of observation. Reflect on what we can do. Here's a couple different things we could do. Which one will we do? Much like a product backlog moving into a sprint backlog is here's all the ways we could add value right now between the product owner, mostly from the product owner. What will we do? But also from the Scrum team. What are the things we know we can do and things we probably can't do? You're giving us 5 big hills, Mike. We can do 2. Pick 2, please. Okay, these are the 2. All right, so what do we do with them? We explore what could be done with them. We take the big, abstract, conceptual, kind of qualitative goal of a hill or a big idea, a moonshot, and we say, well, what would the tangible piece parts look like if it became a reality? What are some aspects of that? I want to be able to get around faster than I can walk. Great. The first and only answer should not be a car. It should be something with wheels, or it should be an animal, I guess. Something or a thing you bounce on, and it, you know the thing? There's no wheels at all, but I'm bouncing, so it's making me move. But I don't have to walk. I just have to a unicycle even. It could be a trampoline, but I can't get anywhere with it. It's like it looks like
Pogo stick.
Pogo stick. Thank you. Yeah. Look, there's at least 6 different ways we could say how to solve for I need to get around faster than I can walk. I can piggyback. I can jump in a taxi. I can call Uber, but I want my own personal capability on demand. All right. So in here, you're kind of coming up with some of that form of ideation, that big divergent thinking, and then saying, what are 1 or 2 of the things going to be that we're going to work on? And then we're talking about how do we break that down into components that we can actually tangibly measure, bring them down into the complicated space on the complexity grid. And now I can work towards optimizing a couple pieces of that. What are my options and what are the right solutions? The more I refine them, the more I break them down, the more ways in which I can deal with the complexity of this ambiguous thing and make it very, very tangible, granular. And the more of them there are, maybe even I can talk to quality things. But then what I need to do is experiment with some of them, and figure out what are the things that are most worth doing right now. So if this is what we can do, this is what we will do. Somebody let go of my, thank you. Something's not locked. That's why that changed. Down here, we're going, what's doable right now? And if we're dealing in sprints in 2 weeks, and we know how much we're capable of doing, all of the options that we deliver for one or both of these hills, we will probably say, we can't do all of those in one sprint. So there's some level of give and take of what's the most viable, minimum viable capability, or MDE, minimum delightful experience even. Or when my team was learning design thinking and agile ways of working, we wouldn't, IBM Design calls them, the minimum delightful experience would be a cupcake. And the next minimum viable would be a birthday cake. So it scales up. And then the big final biggest release is the wedding cake. What's different about them? Anybody? What's different between a birthday cake or a cupcake, a birthday cake, and a wedding cake?
The amount of icing.
Yeah.
The expense.
Yes.
Expense, yeah.
Expense is characterized by which variables, do you suppose?
Well, I'm just going from the wedding cake tends to be exponentially more expensive than a birthday cake.
Yes. Yeah. For a number of reasons, not the least of which is there's more ingredients. It's a scaled cupcake though.
Scale.
It's a scaled cupcake, excuse me, more ingredients, more time because more scale, more complexity of making it and getting it right, or more effort involved in it. So what's the least amount of work we need to do on one pass to get something tangible out there and quickly get a feedback loop closed on this side? That's what's happening at experiment with select projects, or as my team would do it, we wouldn't do cake metaphors. We'd say, the thing that we can do, what will we do when we release it to limit the blast radius? So we don't unintentionally hurt more people than we need to if the thing goes off the rails in ways we did not anticipate.
I kind of want to make salmonella jokes. It's like, make certain you bake things thoroughly before feeding people raw eggs in a cupcake. Yeah.
So, right. Do you want to make 1 or 2 people go to the hospital, or do you want to make 100 people go to the hospital? Right.
Wedding to remember.
Right. So when leaders come in and go, yeah, and could you add that also? No, I think that might increase the blast radius, and I want to make sure that we get it right the first time to make sure it worked. Let's just prove it worked. How about that? That's like the in iteration equivalent of, I want you to do the right-hand side of the cone in the left-hand side. So how do I minimize what I'm going to either work on to figure out what I need to know?
Program for aspiring Scrum Masters. I'm Dr. Kelly Fide, your guide.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all. And actually, the funny thing is, I actually know Kelly. I used to work with her. But thanks for whoever played that.
Rose Gates, ABBA. I love the commentary. You guys are the most lively group, interactive group I've had on this topic in a long time. Thank you. Questions on this model? It is a violent thing to release something and have to scale the blast radius down. It is a violent thing.
The blast radius and the number of people going to the hospital. Like, what are we talking about? Yeah.
Okay. So mindset is really what you could say on the left-hand side. Left-hand side is about making sure we're doing the right work. And the right-hand side is making sure we can do the work right. And I'll break this down a little bit more, but that's really how I see the two to combined is on the left-hand side, I'm finding out what's most essential to the people I serve. On the right-hand side is what's the most optimal way to drive value through with some level of consistency so I can get back here and close that feedback loop for them and find out sooner if all they needed was a skateboard, or they needed a skateboard with a handlebar, or they needed a bicycle or a motorcycle or a car or an SUV. So the sooner I can get something functional with value put out here, and I don't want to say that we don't care what the value is. I want to make the point that we want to make sure there's some value they can inspect so we can adapt sooner. So maybe we don't need all those iterations to get to what we thought the end state was. We find something of delight sooner, and everybody's happy to have something they can use right now while we go make it even better. Still good, everybody? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, please, Rudy.
Maybe this is a kind of thought, and that's maybe one of the reasons I put that light blue ball in the middle, because I need to reflect more, but we don't have time. I was thinking about, we usually jump to solution mode. I don't know the company, I don't know the sector, I don't know, etc. But solution mode is kind of very present every day, right? So
Yes.
we invest less time to reflect, to observe. And I was thinking, maybe because it's part of my personal journey, that okay, we cannot define, we cannot like to stop the agenda or the day-to-day activities, but we have to develop that mindset of balance or mindfulness. Please please amplify that.
Yep.
Where we can find a space or a pause to observe and reflect, but very quickly.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense, and I think that it's a very hard muscle to develop.
Yes.
Because I need to observe and reflect like in 2 days, and to develop an MVP, to develop this. But it's a mindset or very hard to develop, depending, of course, on the background and the personal life, and the personal journeys. But I don't know if you can amplify on that, or you have comments.
I think. Go ahead, Sid.
Because I know it's coming, because I saw your presentation before. I think you might be getting there in the thinking model. I don't know. I don't want to give anything away.
I will. Well, I was actually, Sid, help me, because I was thinking about doing a choose your own adventure here for time. I want to just maybe show that the practices all fit here, but maybe that's the one you can look at later. What's the right one for homework if I can't get through both of the next two? You're saying thinking skills is next? Good.
Thinking skill model. Yeah. Because isn't that get at the heart of the question that
I think so.
Asking about? Yeah.
I think so. Thank you, Rudy. Yeah. What stood out to me though was, Rudy, fast for the sake of fast, not fast for the sake of getting the right reflection in the moment. And so I love that you put that you'd benefit from spending more time in reflection. I think nobody has put that, to my knowledge, in the loop before. That is brilliant. Those, the rest of you who are in the mural, that was the exercise. If you'd put a white dot where you tend to spend most of your time right now in the same context where you put the cone, the complexity grid, if you'd put a white dot where you spend most of your time right now, and then a blue dot where you find benefit from spending more time. And if you want to be like Rudy and say, yeah, me too, that's fine. No reason not to borrow brilliantly from him. Okay, we'll come back to this. I'll look at that in a minute, but let me give you a couple more seconds to put a dot there. And then put them into black, please, because I want to make a distinction about where they are later. In the black strip of the loop, where you tend to spend your time today, and the blue dot, where would you benefit from spending more time? Too much good conversation. I can't read it fast enough. Yeah, what I found with teams, by the way, is teams will always tend to have two areas on the loop. Could be left or right, top or bottom, diagonal, doesn't matter, but there's two places on the loop where teams tend to have white dots, and then the opposite two places, blue dots, almost without fail. And so the rock balancing conversation here would be, where might you need more balance in how you do what you do? Which comes to what Rudy was saying, number 16 is the agility skills. So if the rhythm and flow, if number 15 is the mindset of agility, I submit to you that number 16 is the versatility skill set of what thinking is required at each point in the loop to achieve that portion of the outcome. So if I want to understand my client and I want to observe them well, I'm going to start with some form of visionary conversation. Where are we now? Where would we like to be? leading to strategic thinking, which is what are one or two challenges we could go after that bridge the gap between desired future state, current reality, the as is and the to be. And then once we have one strategy challenge statement we want to work on, what are some ideas about how we might solve that challenge? And as we come out with some big ideas, that whole process is a form of active intentional curiosity. What matters to you? What does your day in the life look like? What would it look like if you woke up tomorrow and someone waved a magic wand and all the problems you're experiencing today went away? What would be different? Well, how do you suppose we got there? What are some ways you think we could go attack that? Great. Let's come in here and let's assess together. Assess or decide is the diagnostic. One is, where are we in the moment? What do we need to talk about? Well, I got this kind of challenge. Okay, that sounds like you need to know what your problem space is. We need to do root cause analysis or deep dive or discovery of a big goal. The diagnostic is first, where do I need to start in the loop? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's over on the left-hand side. And then assessing or deciding is, do we have enough of good ideas? There's some novelty here, some ways that we could delight you if we solve that with that idea. Great. Then let's decide if we're going to do it or not. Now let's evaluate how would we break that idea down into piece parts, into tangible building blocks. What are the right ways to do this work? What's the optimal solution, or how many different ways could we do it, and how could we refine it? What if there are multiple solutions that are viable? Which ones have more strength and could be implemented sooner, or which ones need a little bit more fleshing out, or which ones may have more dependencies, so they may take longer. So there's kind of an evaluation. In the evaluation process, there's like a prioritization within a prioritization. Like if this is the doing the right work gate over here, this is the doing the right amount of work up here. What's the right way to do this? And then contextually, who needs to be involved? Who do we need to talk to? Who are our stakeholders or our assisters, people who will assist us or resist us in the process of developing this? Or when we're talking minimum viability or minimum delight or limited blast radius, who needs to be involved to make sure we hit the right users first, like a select project to experiment with or pilot to test out what we're developing, and not say we're just going to scale this thing and everybody wins. What's a way to slim this down so we get just to the essence of what's worth delivering, just enough right now? And then tactically, how long is it going to take? What are the logistics? What's the plan? What are the steps? Who's going to take on which parts? Now let's go diagnose or assess it. Did we do the right work the right way? So it's the same journey. It's the same mindset, but these are the very specific intentional thinking skills that are required for each step of the journey. And note that they take a very distinct mental shift one to the other. There's 6 different thinking, 7 if you include diagnostic, 7 different thinking styles or skills that we need to have to be really well balanced in this process that you're already doing all day, every day. And by the way, you're already doing these thinking skills all day, every day as a team. The question about that from the mindset perspective is, why might it be that we're all blue here, but we're all, well, okay, this is interesting. It's not quite, it's kind of balanced, 2 and 2, 3 and 2, and then 2 and 1. Right. But if I'm spending all my time here, the white, or if the whole team is all white here, all right, it's a little different looking for this layout. But if I said two blue over here, that suggests to me that the 2 white over here, that means maybe I'm spending just a little bit too much time on the front end of the process than I am on making sure I refine the idea or the problem space and bring it down to a tangible level, tangible enough, tactical enough level that I can produce something smaller and sooner. So the thinking skill goes along with that. So if I say I could benefit from being in the green and the pink up here, what it means is I need to think more about my evaluative and my contextual thinking as a discipline. I may need to have more done conditions up here. I may need to be more rigorous about what I think I can do, and then push back a little harder on what I think we're capable of this sprint. Especially if I don't know what we can accomplish, or if I know we're going to have dependencies on people we need involved before we implement, that I build more time into that thought process before I go run with it. Because you can do this, and then you can find out that it had unintended consequences. And that could be a detriment to actually getting value created. How are we doing? We're at time-ish. But let me just, I'll end with the rubric, and then we can keep talking. And then if it's appropriate, we'll keep going. And I'll open all this up for you afterwards. With the thinking skills comes a very distinct set or rubric of possibilities. So let's say we said we need evaluative and contextual thinking. We need to spend more time there. We need more balance on that side of the loop as a team. I'd go down here and I'd look at what's evaluative. Well, the goal of evaluative, when we put the output would be, I have an articulated, detailed solution. I have a plan in my sprint of what work we're going to do and what the value will look like. It's not, I will create a database. It's not that I will refactor the code. It's that I will have these piece parts lined up to go that are necessary for that value. I'll have the wheels, and I'll have the mechanisms, and I'll have the board and the mounting piece. I'll have all those things that I know are going to bring the value forward. So how I do that is I translate those ideas into workable solutions. And what I do is I take those big ideas and say, from that idea, what I see myself doing is, here's how I'm going to break that down from intangible to tangible. And then I'm going to say, this is the stuff we need to do. And then when I get into contextual, I want to make sure what of the stuff I said in the detailed solution is necessary and what might be in the way or what might be missing from some end user's perspective. So what's the right supporting element to make sure that when I deliver this, it's going to the right people to test it and it's at the right level of just enough that somebody can find value in it, and perchance we didn't think it through well, we don't trip anybody up. So who needs to assist and who might be on the fence, and we don't really want them standing in the way. So what we want to do is at least get them neutralized, or we want to get them on board somehow. I know this is like an eye chart, but there's deeper learning that goes here. But even if you just started with some of these statement starters, so if you said, yeah, we really need to be more evaluative or contextual, well, what do we see ourselves doing with that big idea? And who do we need involved to help us? Who's missing from the conversation is going to be essential on deployment? Is there a subject matter expert we need to contact? Is there some leader, or is there some client on the client side? Is somebody who's going to be prickly about change? So how do we do this in a way that it gets to the right people in the right way? And it's enough to measure and see if we're on the right track. Let me see what the chat looks like. Okay. Sherry, can you come to all my talks, please? Because this is fantastic. All these comments summarized. Fabulous. Questions on the rubric / eye chart? By the way, if you know a good designer, I'm looking for a better way to visualize this.
I love this. This is what I was getting excited about, what was coming next, because it gives very targeted ways to help build out those skills that you brought up in the previous slide.
I feel like it leans into the SCARF model a bit here in giving people, here's some ways to say that. I really like that.
Good. Thank you. For kicks, when I open the mural later, I took the ADKAR model that Sid did 2 months ago, and I overlaid it on the loop. And it seems to me, and I don't know the ADKAR model really well, but it seems to me that it plays here, it fits. In fact, it's coming next. But let me just go to the final loop slide, and then we can go anywhere you want with questions. If this was the mindset, if number 15 was the mindset of agility, just what's happening as we're thinking about observing, reflecting, and making. And this is our thinking skill set that goes along with agility, or our versatility. I need to be versatile in how I think about the process that I follow, and what thinking skills, what ways I need to engage cognitively with my team to make sure at every step I'm bringing the creative best of the team. Well, then this is not that one. That's a nice one, but that's not it. Let's come back to it. Then this is kind of the quick and dirty mashup of where do design thinking and agile ways of working come to life in this iterative infinite loop scenario, color coded based on the mindset and the thinking skills. Blue is really about clarifying the right problems. Orange is really about generating all the ideas that fit with novelty. Where is there a novel way to approach this pain point, this to be as is scenario? User story, story sizing, and sprint planning are all about how am I evaluating what I can do. This is what do we want to do. This is what can we do. And then pink is really about implementing the plan of what will we do. And so really down here, we're being curious about the client. We're confirming with the client what we're going to do. And then we're creating value for the client and coming back again and confirming with them, did we do the right work the right way? Did we do the right work? So there's your high level view of design at a macro level in the work we do, and agile ways of working on the right hand side, how they mesh. Really hills you turn into epics, really big user stories with some tangibility to them, some time boxing. All right, I'm gonna open up a couple things here. Yeah, not that one. Okay, and then the agility focus is if I just had to come in, I'm a coach, and I just really quick, I want to figure out where's this team right now. The agility focus number 24, I'm going to ask 1 of 5 questions. Oh, you got a problem? Well, what's your goal? What's the intended outcome? What are you trying to accomplish? Well, what are some ways you could go accomplish it? What are some possibilities? Has everyone's voice been heard on what our goal is and what our possibilities are? That's how I'd reflect with the team. Okay, great. You've got some ideas? Cool. How do we take 1 or more of those from good to great? What would it look like in tangible value form to take that big idea and turn it into something granular that you can work on and play with? And then finally, what's doable? What's the bottom line is what's doable in this next sprint or in this next series of sprints? So just from a coaching perspective, you can be curious right away. You can confirm with everybody, have we heard from all the right people? Has the whole team weighed in? Have we honored the whole of the team and the stakeholders, the end-to-end value chain that produces what is being consumed? And then what's the value we can do right now? And I will take questions if there are any that I missed. Or
Campers,
general...
this is your opportunity to front and center line up with, I want to call you Mike, but I think you go by Macker, but now I'm just confused.
I answer to both. Answer to
Okay.
both. Answer both. If you're in the mural, you can go look at the ad car is number 20 on the mural. But I want to ask for those of you who are here, and you can do this in chat too. To Rudy's point of we probably don't reflect enough. I'd ask you if you'd share some aha moments you've had so far today in the mural or in chat. Something you really want to remember about what we talked about. And one thing you'll do as a result of what you've heard or learned or said aha about. And I can stay. You can keep asking me questions. I literally can talk about this all night, but I promised Aaron and Sid that I would not do a 3-hour session.
And my dogs that still need to be walked, and the fact that I've not had dinner yet, we're grateful.
The balance. See, I told you it played. That whole balancing thing really does play here.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to share out loud, and feel free to do it on the mural, but also if you want to share out loud. And then Mike, in a few minutes, we'd like to take over sharing to do our closing.
Okay. Loops, balance, the cone. Where you're spending most of your time. Use the cone of uncertainty to help people understand why. Good. Good. Let me, I wonder if I can do this quickly. Quickly is a relative term. What I want to do is go back to the comb actually, and then overlay, if you overlay the loop on it, although it's all grouped together, ungroup, just the loop itself. Then what you see is, in a sense, what we're really doing all day, every day is we're moving not only from discovery to delivery, but from problem, oops, wrong thing, problem finding to problem solving. It's just, we've got to make sure we're finding the right problems before we figure out what the solutions are. And I think sometimes we get locked into the solution before we really understand the problem space. So finding the right balance with the thinking skills in particular, I think would go a long way to not committing to something before it's time. Easy to remember the loops, watching your dog doing circles, pursuing, yes, pursuing his tail. Yeah. And then
yeah, one thing I say, I really love that image, because I was like, oh, that would have been great to use with some teams and leaders who are doing, like, I'm coaching who are doing more strategic work, and they've definitely, like, I've tried to take them, okay, let's get some discovery and everything. But it's been an interesting discussion between them and their leader, who also like wants to have a little bit more defined, or for them to just, start taking action, which we do want some action. At the same time, the team feels like I'm with them. I've been trying to get them to move to at least like, hey guys, just take little steps. And they're definitely used to defining projects. So I feel like that could be a good discussion, just visual, to say, hey, let's just look at this, start moving here. Because that's not to say within that discovery that you're not taking action, because you can be taking action during that time. And I think sometimes people think discovery is just purely, I'm going out and just researching, and that's not how I would see it. So that's one thing I would say about that discovery of just like, it's also can be very much action based.
Yes, it's thank you, Lonnie. It's crazy to me that we would, if you don't define the problem well, you're going to feel the pain of that downstream. So one way or another, you're going to have to put the time in to clarify, did we do the right work? Question is, where do you get the most bang for your, what is the economy of scale to do it up front rather than at the end? It just happens that leadership may misinterpret that as you said, as non-action or inaction or analysis paralysis. And that isn't necessarily the case, doesn't have to be the case. It's look at all the things we've eliminated as not relevant or not the right work to do. So in fact, Charles Kettering said, if problem well defined is half solved. Einstein said, if I had an hour to solve a critical problem, I would spend 50 minutes, 5 out of 6 minutes of that hour defining the right problem. So the more, this is why we like to say, we give wonderful lip service to, there's the cone. No, where's the cone? We give wonderful lip service to the notion of thinking outside the box. I contend that most of the work we do is narrowing the box to its smallest granular size so we can drive a truck through it with novelty. So don't make the box so big that it's almost ambiguous in itself when we say that's the problem. Break it down into the smallest pieces of problem we can, and then put all of our collective effort on solving that with delight and impact. I'm off my soapbox. Aaron and Sid, thank you so much. There's a way to contact me down here or get in touch or see what I'm about. We just launched. Sorry?
Yeah, I just posted your LinkedIn profile over in the chat as well, for anybody who'd like to connect with Mike there.
Yeah. And we just launched a new podcast this year, 12 episodes in, called The Process Beyond. theprocessbeyond.com is where you can find it. And it's also currently on Apple and eventually Spotify. But we're just talking about creativity in general, which is really my area of passion.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Michael, thank you. The information and the ideas that you shared tonight are super helpful, and I'm excited to try out the loop with teams. So thank you.
Pleasure.
So Sid, I'll share this for you just so you can talk to it, and I'll try to figure out how to make it bigger.
Big. All right. So
Yeah.
next month we have Jessica coming to speak. She's going to be talking about hitting the coaching easy button. I would like to know what that is because I haven't found any easy buttons in my coaching so far. So I'm really looking forward to Jessica's talk, and I hope that you'll join us for that one. And it will be the first Monday in June already.
I know. Yeah.
All right. And I want to thank you all for coming. The community is what really makes this a special group. The conversation that we have and the questions that you ask and the way that you engage is really special. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight.
Yeah. And everyone, I will just say a few things in closing. Number one, it has been about 5 years now that I've been co-leading this meetup, first with Brittany Durden, and we started down at USHIP, and then for the past few months with Sid. But this will be the final episode where I am part of the co-leading. So next month, I'm hoping Sid has found someone bright and shiny and new to appear with her on these slides. But I would like to thank everyone for 5 years where this has encouraged me to stretch and reach and grow. And if any of you are ever curious about what it takes to lead a meetup, lean in and find out. But honestly, it really helped me to find a lot of new people and think about ways to reach audiences and what would be beneficial and useful and what were people curious about. This has been probably one of the largest meetups that we've I think of the Agile coaching ones. This is, I think, one of the larger ones, and with all the people coming in from around the world. So deeply appreciate that. But this means that I'm still going to be doing the Agile coaching circles. Those are there. There's some more facilitation work that I've been doing, but this really means that I can just lean more into my own coaching practice. And I can now say it out loud and to many people that I've been asked to join the faculty of CRR Global, which are the people that offer you the ORSC coaching, organizational relationship and system coaching. It'll be a little bit because I have to come up on the training on those, but I'll be doing that in addition to my own coaching work. So thank you, everybody. It's been great, and I really appreciate all your help on this. But with that, we're going to see you next month for Jess and easy buttons. Thanks, y'all.
Erin, thank you. It's been an amazing journey with you. So thank you.
Oh, well, thanks.